Okay, greetings everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Gonna do a resume on part 22 of reconciling the master trust account because Facebook and S&M Records seems to think that I am violating copyright by using um, freely offered material from the public domain and then freely using it in the very same public domain, and they somehow seem to have some kind of supposed evidence that I'm using it for private use for income. So to defeat one's opponent without fighting is of supreme excellence. So screw them. I don't recommend doing any video promoting any of Disneyland, Disney World, Minions, or S&M Records, Facebook, any of these other platforms that are going to interfere with one's right to put forth common or the knowledge for the common good and furtherance of knowledge. Therefore, the information that I put out in that reconciling the master trust account was for the purpose of that and not for income purposes for some minor use of free material that had some music content related to other people that all want to use it for commercial purposes when I merely wanted to help lighten up the room. So without the music this time, we're going to do a resume simply by playing that same zoom from the point after the music, which includes the content that I meant to put out anyway. So here we go. We're going to go on with some screen sharing. And then I'll pull it up. And we should be able to put this at full screen. And we're going to drop down and stop my video and my mic, and we will get started with it. Enjoy, folks. I'll see you when it's done and over with my final comments. Enjoy. All right. Well, thank you for enjoying that with me, folks, because that's what I do is truth. That's what makes me happy. Despite the fact that you might hear me get passionate and sound angry, I am truly happy in that moment because I am told to speak the truth. And in so doing that, last week I told you we're going to be discussing the banker's acceptance for the next couple nights. Tonight I do want to do that, but I want to start out with something a little bit different to show you where it all comes from. Every banker's acceptance has to have some kind of insurance or assurance. And when we look at the federal code, this is from the Texas Administrative Code under Title 28 of insurance. And they specifically have Texas definition of inland marine insurance. And what I want to point out is that insurance relates to imports, exports, domestic shipments, and yet they say non-regulated. So exports, non-regulated, imports, they're all non-regulated. So what is the regulation? Well, we're going to take a look at the nationwide inland marine definition, and this comes from NIAC model laws, North American Industry Classification. So in other words, it applies to industries, and it has to be classified under the model laws, regulations, guidelines, and other resources. And again, it says it's got the purpose, applicability, and exceptions. So first we're going to take a look at the purpose, and it says the purpose of this instrument. Already we are talking about an instrument, which means it is a financial instrument. It is on paper. It is called commercial paper for fiat currency. Is to describe the kinds of risks and coverages which may be classified or identified under state insurance laws as marine, inland marine, or transportation insurance. but does not include all of the kinds of risks and coverages which may be written. Which may be written. Remember that, because that's what your banker's acceptance is. You have to write it. You have to overwrite their underwriting in the insurance policies to make sure that it is full assurance. Classified or identified under marine, inland marine, or transportation insuring powers. Not laws, not regulations, not guidelines or other resources, but the actual source of the power. And again, it's not insuring. We are going to assure them. Their insurance is insured through a superior privacy. Nor shall it be construed to mean that the kinds of risks and coverages are solely marine, inland marine, or transport. In other words, they're not going to place any limitations on them, yet the insurance itself is the limitation. It is an instrument. This instrument shall not be construed to restrict or limit in any way the exercise of any insuring powers. If they say they have insuring powers, then they must admit that by delegation of the people, then the people must have the same powers. However, they're named differently. They're assurances, because under their constitutions and their codes, they are granted under charters and licenses, whether used separately or in combination or otherwise. The purpose of this instrument is to describe the kinds of risks and coverages which may be classified in combination or otherwise. Construing restrictions and limitations in any way the exercise of any insuring powers granted to begin with. So if I'm assuring them, then they have no right to insure. They can't underwrite what I overwrite. They have to be able to overwrite what I overwrite, because they have already underwritten something. That's what insurance is underwriting. Section 2, applicability. Marine or transportation policies may cover under the following conditions. And notice it says policies. Again, it has nothing to do with laws, regulations, guidelines, or other resources. It has to do with the sources, and their policies are commercial instruments, period. May cover under any of the following conditions: imports, exports, domestic shipments, and then bridges, tunnels, and other instrumentalities of transportation, and communication. The communication is whether it's underwritten or overwritten. In combination or otherwise. We're gonna get rid of the combination of all the different languages. We're gonna line item veto through the things that don't fit and make sure that everything fits with one source, and that which is true. And that has to do with the communication. Nothing else. That communication is outside of transportation and the instrumentalities of commerce, excluding buildings, their improvements. The foregoing includes, you don't need to worry about, it's all commercial. And this is all extenuating, and they write all kinds of commercial stuff in between until you get down to exceptions. And then even in exceptions, there's only one thing that you need to worry about, and that is the beginning and the ending, except while in the course of transportation. Yet everything they construe here as exceptions are commercial terms. storage of assured's merchandise. This is a compound noun that's used with that apostrophe S, saying it belongs to the assured, and it is merchandise. I have no merchandise. I am neither buying nor selling. I am the end user, period. So I am not in your commercial transportation. So the except while in the course of transportation. I'm not in transportation. Again, that's a commercial term known as synonymous with commerce. Commerce equals transportation, traffic, or trade. I'm not even trading. I am merely the end user of something that which is already done. Period. As we go on, it gives us, well, let's say here, the charter is intended to provide readers with additional information to more easily access state statutes, regulations, bulletins, or administrative rulings related to the NAIC model. Such guidance provides readers with a starting point. And I've gone through and I've posted all the electronic NAICS codes now too, because everything's in electronic communication now. Nationwide inland marine insurance, and we have no current activity, says no state activity on the topic as of the date of the most recent update. This includes states that have repealed legislation as well as states that have never adopted legislation. In regards to the model adoption, related state activity, and look, they'll tell you model adoption by Alabama and where it's at. When it was adopted, everything. It won't have a related state activity. In Alaska, they never adopted it, but they'll state their state-related activity. What this is here is just like your municipal codes. Your municipalities do not take the state statutes and write them into their codes. What they do is they contract with a publishing company to interpret the state code according to their intents and purposes for issuing municipal bonds. Period. That's it. They are not statutes, codes, rules, and regulations. They are interpretations written up by a publication company, and that is it. They were never adopted. American Samoa, no current activity, means they don't relate the state activity to them, and they've never adopted them. Look at this. Connecticut, no current activity. District of Columbia, no current activity. Even the District of Columbia. Where is the United States located? If the District of Columbia hasn't, then what the hell is this inland marine insurance? All you got to do is prove the inconsistency, folks. That's it. So let's get on with the banker's acceptance. As we talked about last time, the use of a banker's acceptance is most common in international trade transactions. A buyer with an importing business can issue a banker's acceptance with a date after a shipment is due to be delivered. Like I just said, we're not importing or exporting. We're not the buyer or the seller. We're not the shipper. We're not the manufacturer. What's happened, though, is that the government has taken one of their own instrumentalities and used it against us in a subrogation process. In that, certain things have been paid and they've been listed on the record. We have a right of subrogation to reverse and correct the record. And that's all we're doing. So in that subrogation, we're going to assign somebody in the import-export business, the transfer agent, the banker, as the trustee. And he is going to be a co-trustee with other people that we will end up assigning according to the developing transition of merging and renaming or reorganizing under a new name. That's the simple process. We're merging and reorganizing under a new name. That's all we're doing. It's bankruptcy concept. It's concept of a developing nation. It's a concept of a Declaration of Independence, a Constitution, Articles of Confederation, and a peace treaty. 4 foundational documents that all nations developed in order to develop their own internal commercial system. We can use the same thing without having to develop an internal commercial system. We can operate on transitional credits because the system is continuously changing. And as soon as we get set in an internal commercial system, the international level has changed. So we may as well stick with the admittance that it's a continual transition in perpetuity, which is in fact true. All of their markets fluctuate and change. It's never set, and it never stays set for a certain length of time. That's called the contract. The assessment is just an opinion. So we have to change that assessment around. And it says, and the seller with an exporting business will have the payment instrument in hand before finalizing the shipment. We have to have that certificate in hand so we can do the corrections. And we do the corrections by knowing the assignments and learning as we go along the way, just like they will. Each individual, my truth isn't your truth isn't my truth. Everyone's going to have different elements that they're going to have to include. I don't have children in the public education system. I likely won't have to include that. But people that are married and have children in there, they're going to have to include the Board of Education. And that's the Board of Education with general counsel and all that. Yeah, we want everybody involved. This is the part of their notice. They have to be involved in the arbitration. The person who is paid with a banker's acceptance may hold on to it. This is what I said yesterday. Who is paid. When they transfer it, that's the payment. The pay is transfer. Okay, so when they send you that certificate as the intended recipient, because you qualified for certain phrases in their form, they send it to you. Now you have been paid with that certificate. It's a commercial paper. You have to make the qualifications on it so it can be accepted for its value, because it doesn't have a value on it yet either. So you have to assess the value, put the value in an invoice, and then make the assignments in trust to transfer that value to a transitional credit and make a special deposit for that specific intent. That's a banker's acceptance. You are operating as the banker without having to be a bank. They're the bank, and they provide trustees for bankers' acceptances. And you may hold on to it until its maturity date in order to receive its full value, or you can sell it immediately at a discount face value. That's what I was talking about yesterday. You're going to put a value to it. You're going to sell it back to them as face value because now you have evidence of their fraud, and they're going to want to buy it back. I guarantee you. I guarantee you, because now it's a perfected instrument. They have to buy it back. Unlike a regular check, a banker's acceptance relies on the creditworthiness of the banking institution. It is no longer operating under insurance where it's depending on another banking institution. It's depending on the banker who made the banker's acceptance and handed it over with its assignments. That's where the credit extends from. That's what we're correcting. We're correcting the credit worthiness, and it's going to get rid of that credit score because it's going to tell them, hey, if there ain't no debt score, then how can there be a credit score to balance it? And if you got a credit score, then you've got to show the debt score. Guess what? The debtor is located in the United States. The United States is located in District of Columbia. District of Columbia has no related activity. No current activity. Rather than the individual or business that issues it. Unlike a regular check, a banker's acceptance relies on the creditworthiness of the banking institution. Now, you've given them the creditworthiness in full faith. They have to operate in that creditworthiness of the banking institution because you're the one that gave them the credit and they recognize this now. That's where they get their creditworthiness, is from the business that issues it, or the one that issues it. Whether they want to call it a business or not, it's a business transaction, and we're doing it in a subrogation process to correct their business records. The bank requires that the issuer meet its credit eligibility requirements. In other words, we're the ones that have to correct the record, because they're not going to do it. They keep insisting that under the insurance underwriting, they are the issuer. They can only issue, Federal Reserve is allowed to issue Federal Reserve notes in advance to other Federal Reserve banks or financial institutions for their use and for no other purpose. For no other purpose. That means it's for those Federal Reserve notes are specifically for the banks, not the banker. You are the actual banker. You're the one that gives credence to the document. You have to certify it. You have to validate it. Without that, it's still just a legal presumption. Bankers' acceptance as investments. What we're doing is correcting the record again. They're using that instrument as their internal investments, and it is operating against the principal. We are going to correct the record through acceleration, calling them all back by correcting that we are the principal. And we are accelerating, not for the full term of the 30 years for all that interest, but we're going to claim any interest that's on them at this point in time. Whether it's been out for 10 years, we're claiming the 10-year interest. If it's 12 years, 12 years interest. If it has been 29 years, we can't claim 30 years. We can still claim the 29. So we have to do that. Forensic accounting, that's an assignment. Forensic accounting, we're going to clear all accounts, settle all debts. All debts, and everything that's residual and due the principal is going to be converted properly to future transitional credit use only. Shouldn't be any more need for bankers' exceptions from that one point in time on. You should be able to correct it once, and it operate on the international level from that time forward. No internal agency should be able to breach that veil. Banks and institutional investors trade bankers' acceptances. So when we sell it back to them, full value or sell it immediately at a discount to face value, that's what we're doing. We're giving it back to them with the trustee position that's to settle all our accounts, and whatever they have invested in it at that point as trustee through trust law, they are allowed to invest that trust property. Let them invest it. Give them that extra to go ahead and further invest. Let them be greedy. Let those be fooled, be fooled. But you're going to settle your side now. It's no longer going to be commingled. So, second acceptance is on the secondary market, because they're going to recognize, again, you're the principal, you're the first market. You're the first one, first in time, first in line for claim of marketable titles, secondary or first. We're the primary. Before they reach maturity. The strategy is similar to that used in trading zero coupon bonds, just like the same as the operation of a zero balance account. In other words, it's a drawdown of credits, and every so often it's going to zero balance. It's not going to build credits and then you got to pay them back to bring it to a zero balance. It's going to be a drawdown of credits that already have been advanced and specially deposited into an advanced deposit account. And all it does is fluctuates on the negative side like this. And every time it zeroes out to the zero balance. It stays on their negative side. The banker's acceptance is sold below face value at a discount determined by the length of time before the maturity date. So you can call it back and then do through acceleration, and then do a reissue through a new bond. You're going to reissue a new bond, give it a new maturity date. You can do that. You have that power of contract. Now they have the right, with that interest, to turn around and issue that bond for 30 years, if that's what you tell them. as long as as long as it's legal within that banking structure. And that's the purpose of hiring them or placing them as trustee. I used that wrong, hiring them. You're investing in them as a trustee in that bond, that certificate of live birth or whatever, whatever bond you're going to use, you're investing in them. You're putting their invested interest in it by telling them, I'm going to help get you some of that credit through this. I want this much. Here's how much you get to invest, however you want to crazily invest it. Bankers' acceptance are considered to be relatively safe investments because the bank and the borrower are liable for the amount that is due when the instrument matures. The bank and the borrower. So when you fix the presumption that you are in fact the creditor, they realize you no longer are you the bank or the borrower. They are. You just got done finishing the process of, quote, selling it to them through your right of subrogation, fixing everything, turning it all around, fixing who the real creditor is. Then it says advantages and disadvantages of bankers' acceptances. One of the key advantages of a banker's acceptance is it's backed by a financial institution, protected against default. This is the full faith and credit, 31 USC 3123. And this is because everything is legal tender, known as a negotiable instrument. The purpose of this instrument, everything is an instrument and everything is negotiable, and it can be negotiated further as an instrument or as a settlement. And that's it. No two ways, no other ways about it. It's either instrumentalized for future benefit or settled and cleared now. That's equity. Because to continue to profit off another man's loss in that commercial system is not equity. It is only equitable. Once recognized, it can be fixed. That's what we're doing. We've recognized it. We're fixing it. That's all we're doing. We're using the construct of equitable law to bring it into equity by forming the contracts one step at a time. It's called knowledge through education. We are in the learning process just like they are. I come in peace. I am in peace, and I will leave in peace. I've come with 5 talents so I can come back with 10. I hope to give you my 5 talents so I can accept the 5 talents from you. We need to learn from each other. And with that, I yield the floor and open to questions. I'll pop these links in the chat section.
I got a question.
Go ahead, brother.
Okay, so all we really is doing when we get a contract, we just reconstructing the contract.
Absolutely. That's all we're doing. Come out of her. And the only way we come out of her is by fixing the language that they're using against us.
So this is what I'm saying. So how do we do it? So we correct the language. As we correct the language, do we attach an affidavit? Because I have done this in mortgages. Correct the language, put an affidavit, got it certified, got it authenticated on the state and the state and county level, and corrected the whole mortgage, the language in the mortgage, and sent it back. And let them know if there's any errors, omissions, and defects. Please, under the penalty of perjury, identify such omissions, or you permanently waive your rights to make any claims.
Well, the only way to remove all things from the probate court, which is what we're dealing with, if we're dealing with anything commercial, it's probate court, tax court, a revenue court, because it's actually abandoned property, property held in abeyance, the state assumption of holder of property. And basically what we're doing is that affidavit that you're talking about rather than deal with those affidavits in that commercial system. The true affidavit is the living will. That's what removes everything from probate. What we're doing is our intent is, in fact, to remove everything from probate to establish the private estate founded on the living will.
So I got another question. I was using the Quran as the living will.
That is correct, because that's what we're doing is we're accepting his oath, his will. So his will is our living will, but our living will is his will through us.
Right. Okay.
Right. And that's why I tell everybody, and whether, like I said, it doesn't, our brother here uses the Quran. I know people that use the Torah. I use the King James Version of the Bible. It's all like wording. Just like the UCC says, the law shall be uniform throughout all jurisdictions. So it's uniform throughout the Torah, the Quran, and the King James Version of the Bible. And it's also uniform in their code because that's where they get it from. They get their original jurisdiction from the original jurisdiction. They get the use of their words from the construction of the words. From beginning, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Without that, their construction, like I said, the Hebrew, Latin, and French that they use to construct English on is exactly that. It's a mix. It's commingling of these, this, and that, and it's all a confusion of language. We're going to get back to correcting that language by using simple words. And that's equity. When you get rid of all of their commercial terms and everything, you bring it into equity yourself. He who seeks equity must first bring equity. And actions speak louder than words. So even if you want to put it on paper, I got this silver surety bond, I don't give a fuck. Sorry about my language. I don't really give a goddamn. Because the true thing is that we're supposed to be doing what he says. And that takes no paper. It's written here. And that's by reason and logic in communication with this. Every man, I've been subjected to many different religions throughout the different foster homes, folks. They all have the same concept. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Simple. Love thy neighbor as thyself. It's the same thing throughout every writing. Equal consideration, equal benefit. And if there be detriment, it be shared. Same thing. Anybody else?
I'm gonna have to get with you, Keith. Like I said, your process and how I started mine is the process is pretty much the same. I just need some of the, because drafting documents ain't the issue for me. I just want to make sure I get all the things that you got aligned so that the merger of what I'm doing, because it makes all the stuff that you're saying makes all the sense in the world.
Yep.
It makes all the sense because their common law is admiralty maritime. They tell you in their statutes and codes. So the thing that I'm doing for the birthrights, I'm coming out of commercial and I'm utilizing hereditaments as a right of inheritance.
Yep. And this is why I hope people will learn to incorporate the Libra code in there, because Libra code sections 2, 7, 10, 15, 31, and 38 and 53 all relate to the abeyance of property in those hereditaments. Chaplains, hospital nurses, and staff are known not to be prisoners of war because they are peaceful habitants ministering the word of God. Very important aspect.
I got another question. I have filed a bunch of stuff on the state level. I'm letting it all go. You got 1 minute. So from what I'm understanding is that we don't supposed to be doing business with the state.
Right.
We're supposed to do it with the federal, right?
Yep. Civilian Board of Contract Appeals to correct all records.
Right.
Removal from probate to establish the private estate without contract.
Okay. I got you. Man, this is some good stuff. This is some beautiful work you did, brother. This is some real.
All glory goes to him. He says, ask and you shall receive. And it seems like every time I punch the keys, he takes me where I need to go.
Exactly. This is some beautiful work.
Right,
This is the last piece I need. So I definitely will. We're gonna have to really. I'm a.
okay. So that is reconciling the master trust account part 22 without violating or infringing upon or even being conceived as infringing upon any kind of copyrights or anything, and got the content out that I wanted to get out. So when I post this, I'll post the links that we went over in regards to the inland marine insurance. The Investopedia one you can look up yourself. And remember, Facebook S&M Records has made a false claim. I got the music content from the public domain, which was free. I used it in a free public domain forum um, under a free use plan with no subscription. And I have no intent of making any kind of income from any of these videos, anything. I'm just putting out information, sharing what's already out there. And therefore, there can't possibly be any kind of infringement. So they've made a false claim. And like Sun Tzu said in Art of War, to defeat one's opponent without fighting is of supreme excellence. So rather than even bothering arguing with them, we just ain't even going to worry about Disneyland and Minions and the music and all of that, and just worry about the content that we're putting out here and let them go by the wayside. We're not worried about their commercial content, so screw them. And remember, folks, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. I'll be posting all my links. I hope you mash that PayPal button and share some love. Check out the YouTube channels or YouTube channel and subscribe. Hit the like button, share, and of course, share all the information and everything that you find that I'm posting. I post nothing but what I truly believe to be true. And I get most everything from the public domain and only express an opinion in regards to what I see as plain writing. So please, again, remember, if it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. God bless you. Love you. Share, share, share. Have a great night.